Hello everyone and welcome to the Tradcast, the podcast that connects traditional archery enthusiasts. Today is episode number 4, and on today's show, I'm going to give you a quick update from upstate New York, and then we're going to join Bob McArthur for some 3D traditional shooting tips. Today's show is going to be a lot of fun. Let's get right into it. Alright everyone, welcome to today's Tradcast, the podcast that connects traditional archery enthusiasts. Today is episode number 4. Got a great show in store for you today. I'm going to be starting things out with a quick update here from Northern New York on some things I've been doing. And then we're going to break into an interview I recently did on some 3D traditional shooting tips with Bob McArthur. Alright guys, well today is January 17th and it's a very cold day here in upstate New York. My truck thermometer is currently saying 3 degrees. So it's very, very cold. And I am headed up here to check some trail cameras. I do want to check a few trail cameras. I checked them last week. Didn't really have a whole lot come through. Had a couple of does, some fawns on camera, but no bucks. And like I said last week, I'm into that time of year where the deer really kind of vacate my property and are only coming through very sparingly on a couple of key runways. But other than that, I don't have a whole lot of deer activity on my property right now this winter. But I am going to keep the trail cameras rolling, so you just never know what's going to show up. I'm a firm believer in that. But I also wanted to talk to you a little bit about a couple of things I've noticed from shooting my new whip longbow and my Bear Grizzly recurve. Now, I've always heard that, a longbow was more forgiving and was easier to shoot and, easier to be accurate with. And you know what? I've been shooting my new Jerboden whip for just over a week now, and I would have to agree with that statement. Because the way I've been practicing is I'm actually taking some soda bottle caps, and I'm actually just hanging those off the front of my target. So it gives me a real concrete, point of focus to look at and to aim for whenever I'm shooting. And I can, just thinking back to the time when I was shooting my recurve, it just seems like I was getting more bottle cap hits with my recurve on average than I have been getting with my longbow. But on the flip side, I'm gonna say that as a whole, my shots are a lot closer to that bottle cap with the longbow than they were with the recurve. I guess what I'm saying by that is I have a lot less errant shots, or a lot less, shots that aren't good shots with the longbow. So although I personally found my recurve to maybe be, if I made a good shot and did everything correctly, it seems like my recurve I could probably get a little bit more pinpoint accuracy with. But on the flip side, if I didn't have very good shot form or even just had one thing go astray, my arrow would be, 6, 8 inches, sometimes even a foot off target. And sometimes I wouldn't even hit the target. I would hit my backstop. So, and it seems like, those shots are a lot less frequent with my longbow. So, and don't get me wrong. I've hit the bottle cap several times with my longbow, but it just seems like I haven't hit as many on average as I was with the recurve. Now maybe that's because I don't have as much time with the longbow. I've only been shooting it, like I said, just over a week, and I'm certainly getting better each day. So that will probably come over time. But I did shoot that recurve for a couple of months, and even when I got my longbow and stopped shooting that recurve, I was still, I'd have that occasional shot that would be, 6-8 inches off, or like I said, sometimes a foot off, and just, real discouraging. Whereas those kind of shots have been a lot less frequent since I've been shooting my longbow. So that's just something I wanted to share for you, for whatever it's worth. As it sits today, January 17th, I would have to say that I would agree that a longbow seems to be more forgiving. And it just seems like even if you don't have perfect form on each shot, you can still kind of keep that arrow, maybe not a perfect shot, but still be a good shot. So I just wanted to share that with you. Now I want to break into an interview that I did a few nights ago with Bob MacArthur, who shared some great tips for traditional 3D shooting. So without any further ado, let's jump right into that interview. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest on the show this evening. We are going to be talking with Bob MacArthur, who is going to be giving us some tips on 3D shooting with traditional bows. Welcome to the show, Bob.
Yeah, hi, Chad. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. As I talked about earlier, Bob, I wanted to have you on the show this evening so that we could discuss some tips that you might be able to provide our listeners on 3D shooting, since it is the wintertime and a lot of guys are going to be getting out there and starting their 3D seasons. I thought it'd be a great show to have you on to discuss some tips and things that have worked for you in your career as a 3D shooter.
Sure. Anything I can do to help.
Okay. Well, Bob, I want to start the show off this evening by having you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into shooting 3D.
Sure. Well, I'm 56 years old, and I live in southeast Pennsylvania. I'm a life member of the United Bow Hunters of Pennsylvania. I'm also a county rep for them. Actually, I recommend everybody join their state's bow hunting organization. They do lots of good work for you and as well as other hunters in your states. But anyway, I've been hunting for about 41 years or so. I've been bow hunting approximately somewhere between 30 to 32 years is how long I've been bow hunting. And in terms of the types of bows I used, I'd say for about 25 years I was strictly a compound shooter and hunted strictly with a compound. And about, I'd say, 5 or 6 years ago, I made the switch to traditional, and I did it in a fashion where I didn't ease into it. I just stopped with the modern equipment and went right to a longbow at the time. And really, how I got into that was, as I said, I belong to the United Bow Hunters of Pennsylvania, and we sort of had an informal message board online, and so members across the state, we would, there'd be friendly banter going back and forth. And at one point, a gentleman, and I'm going to name his name because this man is selfless. And if anybody listening here is out in western Pennsylvania, you may have heard of this gentleman. But a man by the name of Roy Painter, who makes his own bows, contacted me. And he had said, hey, Bob, if I make you a longbow and I give it to you, would you hunt with it the following season 40% of the time? So if I used it 40% of the time, he said he would ship it out to me, and he would make it, ship it for free. I replied to Roy, I said, if you make me a longbow and send it to me, I'll use it 100% of the time. And of course, Roy made that bow for me and shipped it out. I started shooting it in my backyard, and I started shooting it over at my home club, which is Wapiti Archers in Fort Washington. and kind of have not looked back since. Literally, the day I started shooting the longbow is the day I hung up the compound bow, and and I literally had not touched it in a little over 5 years. So that's how I really got into traditional archery. It was just through the generosity of another traditional archer, and I think Chad, once you and other people who are new to traditional archery, the more you get involved in this, you're going to find that traditional archers, as a group, are very generous people, and you'll see they do things and offer things with no, they don't expect anything in return. It's a fantastic community.
Well,
but anyway, I'm sorry?
No, and I was just going to say, Bob, I mean, just to reflect on that, I've already noticed that the traditional community seems to be very outgoing and very willing to help, new archers. Because, I mean, as anybody knows who's listened to the first 2 episodes of the show here, I'm in the same boat that you were in years ago. I mean, I essentially just decided that I was going to stop shooting the compound bow, and that's what I did back in October of this year. I just made the commitment that I was going to take up traditional shooting, and I have not touched my compound bow since. So,
yeah, we'll say it was a fun journey. I still consider myself new in my journey, because I've only been doing it for 5 or 6 years, and I shoot regularly with people who've been shooting traditional for 40 years or more. It's fantastic. But to kind of get back onto what I was, why I switched to traditional too, is that it's funny because around that time, 5 or 6 years ago, bow hunting started getting boring. I mean, I killed so many deer. Up to that point, I killed a ton of deer with my with a compound bow. It was really not a challenge. It got to the point where, for the longest time, my challenge was, all right, let me get the animal in as close as possible, and for the closest possible shot, be it right underneath my stand or just maybe 3-4 feet after my stand, maybe a yard and a half, and that was kind of getting me turned on. But still, it was an automatic kill, no matter what. It was no challenge to it. And also, probably about 5 years prior to that, so I'm going back now 10 years or so, I stopped shooting 3D, again, because it was boring. For me, it was like, didn't matter whether I was 20 yards from the target, 10 yards from the target, 50 yards from the target. Didn't matter. It was just, you just put your pin on it and release. The arrow went right there, and it was really not a challenge. So, so the sport of archery was kind of getting boring to me. And so I think Roy Painter, in my conversations with him, I think he saw that I was at the right time, that for him to make that offer. And God bless Roy, because he tries to do things, tries to convert everybody to traditional archery. So that's how I got involved in all this. So I shot a little, I would shoot every day in my backyard, and of course go over to my club as often as I could, which is only about 10 minutes away, and shoot there. And became proficient enough by the next season to be able to bow hunt. And happy to say that I killed the doe on my first hunt, probably 15 minutes into the hunt. And I thought, heck, this thing is easy. This is really easy. And of course, my next kill came probably, I don't know, I guess it was 3 years after that.
Well,
so it wasn't quite as easy as I thought it was on my first time out. But it was, but what a thrill it was to harvest a doe that one Friday night, and quite honestly, you know, killed a lot of deer, killed a number of nice bucks, but that doe, you know, they're all trophies, but that doe was my ultimate trophy. It really was. So I'm more thrilled about that doe than anything I've ever taken before or since, quite honestly.
Oh, I can imagine. I know that you know, this upcoming year here for 2015, I'll be ecstatic if I can you know, take a doe this first year.
Hope so. But anyway, that's kind of, again, that's kind of lead into, you know, how I got involved in this wonderful sport. I should say wonderful way of life, quite honestly, because that's what it's become.
Yeah, well, I'm sure there's a lot of guys out there listening who can probably relate to you know, to your story about how you got into traditional shooting, because it kind of pretty much falls right in line with the way I got in. Just like I said, I was talking to a few buddies, and you know, here I am, you know, 2 months later, and pretty much have not shot my compound in almost 3 months now. So
yeah.
But Bob, the reason why we wanted to get you on the show tonight was because I'm hoping to give the listeners out there some tips on their upcoming 3D seasons. And I know that you do shoot a lot of 3D now with your traditional bows.
Yeah.
So I was hoping that we could maybe start out by talking a little bit about how your 2014 3D season went.
Okay. Well, quite honestly, Chad, they all run together because we don't, you know. Down here, you know, I live in the suburbs of Philadelphia. All right, I'm in the southeast section part of Pennsylvania, and there is a heavy traditional archer presence down here. Believe it or not, and so, and we're fortunate. There's a lot of archery clubs in this area, and several of them. I mean, there's like two or three. Our club, as well as the club I shoot indoor. I'm going to give them a plug, Cloverleaf Archery. You know, my home club's Wapiti Archery, Cloverleaf in Quakertown. Between our two clubs, we have shoots all year round. And, you know, there's one or two others. I think Springtown, might be another one that has one. So what happens is that the traditional archers seem to shoot all year round. Doesn't matter whether it's snowing, raining, sunshine. The weather could be 90 degrees outside, 100 degrees outside, or it could be 2 degrees outside. Doesn't matter. We shoot year round. So my 2014 season, how it started, it didn't have a beginning and it didn't have an end, quite honestly, because it's constant. You know, and how that worked out for me, at least, is it was very successful because I'm out there almost every weekend with anywhere from 4 to 8 guys or more in a group, and we just had a heck of a lot of fun. And, you know, I shoot against myself. And so, you know, I'd say most of my shots were kills all year. So for me, it was a very successful season because I kept my form, kept shooting, learned something from a lot of these guys, and it's amazing. It's just the little things that you pick up that can help. And, you know, made some new friends along the way with it. So I would say 2014 was really good. And for the 2015 season, I expect the same. Well, it's already started out. I've already shot 2 3Ds. And what's today, January 12th? I've shot 2 3Ds, and I've already had an indoor 3D league. And I have another indoor 3D shoot tomorrow evening. So again, you know, how I expect this to go is I expect it to be a little bit more consistent. You know, being a little bit, you know, having my groups get a little bit tighter, which is what I try to do. You know, every time I shoot, I'm trying to pick that one spot, trying to hit that spot, and then, you know, loose a few more arrows, and I'm trying to get those groups nice and tight. And so really, I'm just trying to keep my, you know, for 2015, my goal is to be more consistent more so than I was last year, and to try to shoot maybe a few more shoots. What I'd like to do is I haven't been to Baltimore yet. I'd like to go. That's on my radar. I'd like to go to Baltimore for 2015. That's one of my goals of what I want to try to accomplish is to get to the Baltimore Bowman shoot down there. I think it's a 3 or 4 day event, and and shoot with a bunch of guys that are maybe from other states as well.
Yeah, that sounds like a really great time. Now, I myself, I have actually never even attended a 3D shoot. I mean, even as my days, in compound shooting, I always just pretty much shot at the house and in my backyard, and just doing my own kind of hunting training. Now, for the guys out there who are in this, in the same situation as me, never having, even participated in a 3D shoot, I was wondering if you could maybe explain to anybody in that situation a little bit about how your typical 3D shoot is run, and maybe if it's going to be a competitive thing, a little bit about how those events are scored and kept track of.
Okay. Well, to talk about scoring, down here in our custom down here is, if you're a traditional archer, you don't keep your score. You don't even walk out with a scorecard. So I don't know how it is around the rest of the country, so I can't speak to that. So quite honestly, I can't even tell you what I believe the tightest ring or the smallest ring on the vital, I think that's a 10. The next ring that's just a little bit larger, I believe, is I think that's a 12, the small one. The next bigger ring is a 10, and then the rest of the vitals is an 8, and the body is a 5. I think that's how it's scored. Don't quote me on that, because like I said, we don't keep score down here. But here's what I would suggest. But here's how a typical shoot is run here in our parts. Typically, it's usually on a Sunday. Sometimes it's on a Saturday. Club opens up at 7, so you come in, you go into a club. It's usually go from 7 to 11. So for signing, and you can shoot as many times as you want. So you come in, you sign in, you pay your money, and you're off to the first target. You can shoot alone. You can come in groups. Typically, what we see down here is you'll see compound shooters anywhere from 1 to 4 guys. Traditional archers, you'll see them anywhere from 3 to 10 people in a group. And then you shoot station to station. Quite honestly, it's like golf. You can equate it to golf. You've got 18 holes in golf. Like our course, we have 30 targets. But from target to target, and it's a mapped out course. So, but that's and that's essentially how a 3D shoot is run.
Yeah. Now I'm sorry, Bob. I would say that what you mentioned there about not keeping score, I would say that falls pretty much in line with how the guys do it here, because I have talked to a few of my trad buddies and that do the the 3D shooting, and they mentioned to me also because they're trying to recruit me into maybe going to a shoot, and with me just starting out, I'm certainly not the best shot in the world, and I'm just kind of trying to work on this myself, but they've been encouraging me. Saying how, nobody keeps score. It's just really a time for guys to get together and shoot and have fun and just, build that camaraderie. And so I think that's probably, a pretty safe bet to assume that, most of these 3D, shoots, are just about guys getting together, having fun, and working on their own individual shots.
Yeah, I think it sounds to me that your buddies have got it. But you said something, they've been inviting you, right? But you're sort of reluctant to go out there, because you're waiting to get a little bit better.
Yeah, I would just, I mean, I'm trying to get to where I can...
Don't, Chad. You got to go out and trust me, Chad. You and everybody else that's listening here who's fairly new to this, you know, I've been there. You know, you just go. You would not believe how these traditional shooters are. Quite honestly, most of the traditional archers that I shoot with on a regular basis, I didn't know these guys. I just met them at the club. I showed up with my bow. I wound up shooting alone. I was invited to shoot with some of them, you know, and then it got to, hey, you know, we're going to this club next week. We're going to have a shoot, Bob. Why don't you come with us? Why don't you meet us there? They were so welcoming and they were so helpful. I mean, so for me, and I think for anybody else who's new to this, you know, just immerse yourself into it, because for me it worked. It was just they did not make me feel like, oh, I can't shoot. You know, if I got a little frustrated, you know, I can remember this gentleman, Matt, I can't remember his last name, but at one time he was a longbow champion in, I think, the state of Minnesota. It gets interesting who you meet on the course. And he's like, no, man, you can't get upset with your shot. What you need to do is you need to forget about your last shot. Just, you know, he would help walk me through a shot, and, you know, okay, fine. I would pull off a shot and just, you know, that was better than the last one. So these guys, you know, for you guys and gals that are new to this, don't feel self-conscious. The traditional archer community is out there, and they're willing to share, they're willing to help, and they expect nothing in return. It's just pretty amazing, and I would say that's probably the biggest tip or biggest resource that you could take advantage of, because, you know, I would tell you to start it. Do it this Sunday and see. And I think you'll be amazed at how helpful these folks are, and how willing they are to allow you to shoot with them.
Yeah, I think that's a great tip, Bob. You know, like I said, I'm actually planning on getting out this winter. I do want to get out for some shoots. You know, sometimes it's a little bit difficult with my work schedule, but you know, I certainly want to get out there and you know, like I said, meet other traditional shooters, and you know, try my skill set, you know, at these courses. And you know, of course, it's going to be great, you know, practice. You know, whether you want to stay just a 3D shooter, a target shooter, or if you're a bow hunter looking to work on your bow hunting game. So yeah, I mean, I certainly want to get into that.
It's funny, you mentioned 3D shoots, especially for traditional archers. It's a walkthrough course, and I think you had mentioned I don't know if it was in one of your first videos, the first or second video, but I remember hearing you watch it. You made the comment that you're not hunting from a tree stand as much, that you're liking it on the grounds.
Correct.
Yeah, I saw that. So for you, somebody like you, a 3D is a hunting situation for you, for walking through there. So by all means, I think you really ought to get there, because it'll help you. It'll help you with your shooting, and you could work on your still hunting techniques for your stalking, or work on trying to walk through the woods without making noise. I mean, there's a lot of, you know, so while you're working on your shooting, you can work on other aspects of your bow hunting too, as you're moving through the woods.
Yeah, I think that's a great tip. In fact, I'm certainly going to be doing that this year. Now, Bob, I had another question I wanted to ask you. I mean, so far, like I said, I'm new to the traditional game, and I've been hearing on, you know, forums and other guys talking. You know, a lot of guys are saying that, you know, longbows are more forgiving than recurves, and they're easier to start out with, and they're more consistent to shoot. Now, for the guy that's, you know, maybe looking to get a traditional bow, and he's, you know, strictly looking to just maybe do 3D shooting, or he's just starting out, I wanted to get your take on what your opinion is as to, you know, whether a guy should maybe look towards a longbow, or maybe look towards a recurve for his first bow.
Yeah. You know, Chad, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to that. I think, you know, I mean, guys, I don't think one is better than the other for a 3D situation or even a hunting situation. I think, at least for me, I can only speak from my experience, and and it's right for me. I can't say that it's right for everybody else, but the bow's got to just feel right. It's got to fit you. It's got to feel right. On everything, holding it, drawing it, releasing it. Everything's just, when it feels right, you'll know it. And I would say that's the bow you use. So it could be a recurve, it could be a longbow. I don't know. And quite honestly, most times I'm out there with my longbow, but the past couple of shoots I've been out with a recurve. So, to me, I just don't think it matters. I think what matters is how that bow just feels in your hand. Does it fit you? I think that's the key.
Yeah, I would certainly agree with that statement, because, like, I picked up a used Bear Grizzly that I got as my very first bow, and I just recently got a whip that I had made by Denny Mears down at Jerboden, and I've been shooting that bow now for the last probably 4 or 5 days, and I've shot both bows since I've had the whip made and took delivery of that bow, but that new longbow I got, it just feels like it's the bow for me, and I pretty much plan on shooting that exclusively, from here on out, so that I can hone in my skills with that individual bow. And like you said, almost kind of become like where that bow, becomes a part of you almost.
Right, it's an extension of you, and you'll know it when you have the bow in your hand when that happens, because that'll wind up being your go-to bow most of the time. Just because it just feels right. Yeah.
Right. Now, Bob, I also wanted to ask you, is there any, I know you mentioned before that there's really no off season for your shooting because you shoot so regularly, but what are some of the practice techniques that you employ that that help you become a better shooter, that you think might help somebody listening here tonight?
I think shoot often, and I think also never walk away from a target without your last shot being a good shot. And I think when I say shoot often, now shooting often could mean every day you're shooting 35, 40, 50 arrows, 100 arrows, or maybe it's just 1 or 2 shots in the morning before you leave for work. You have the 3D target outside, out the backyard. You step outside on your deck, or you step out your back door. You loose an arrow at it. 1, 2, and then go. That helps. That does a couple of things. It helps keep your form when you shoot regularly, and it just keeps your mechanics in line. I think that's probably, at least for me, that's the technique that I use, at least to at least keep semi-sharp, at least. There's some days where I can shoot a little bit more in the mornings before work. There are other days where I can't. I can only just let loose, just a couple of arrows.
Yeah.
That seems like would work for me, but I think everybody's got to figure out for themselves what works for them. Because my brother, for example, he's not one who can shoot all the time, because when he does, it's just, I think, he just can't keep his concentration. He's all over the place, and I think what it is, he's just shooting too much, and he's not, I think it's just a habit for him. He doesn't, he just can't stay focused all year round, and that's okay, so you just got to figure out what is the best way for you as an individual, because what works for me, Chad, is not going to work for you, or it may not work for you, and it may not work for anybody else. You just kind of got to figure that out.
Exactly.
But
now,
you you got to shoot. But you got to shoot.
A couple things that you mentioned there, I kind of found intriguing, is because it actually kind of relates to what I've been doing here the last few weeks. And you talked about how you never want to end with your last shot being a bad shot, and I've actually found myself doing that because right now it's so cold up here, up here where I live in northern New York. I mean, it's 13 below zero right now. It's so cold this time of year that I really can't get outside to shoot very much. So I'm kind of tied to my 10-yard indoor basement range right now. But the last few weeks, I'll be shooting my bow at 10, 11 o'clock at night, and I'll think that it's my last shot of the night, and I'll shoot, and I might be off by 6, 7, 8 inches, and I just can't let that be my last shot because it wasn't it wasn't a good shot for me. So I found myself doing the same thing. If I didn't end on a good note, I always want to end my last shot on a good note.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's that's what works for me anyway.
Yeah, I think that's a great tip. Yeah. And I also have been kind of doing what you mentioned. I mean, what I'm doing right now is, I'll be upstairs watching TV, and like I said, I have my range down in the basement. I'll go down there, shoot 2 arrows, and that's it. And I'll come back upstairs. I'll watch TV for 10, 15 minutes, almost kind of simulating that first shot, scenario each time.
Yeah. One other thing I do too, Chad, is I try to visualize. Sitting in the Barco lounge or something like that, and just have some time, just kind of shut my eyes and try to visualize myself shooting at a target. If I can't get out to shoot a little bit, so I try to do that as well.
Right. I mean, all very very good tips, and I'm sure that the listeners are going to be able to take some of that input and apply that to their own shooting. Rather it be 3D shooting or their hunting practice, what have you. I think like we talked about, the biggest thing with traditional shooting is it's you, that arrow, and your bow, and it's a connection of the three of you, and you've got to find a way what works for you. Might not work for the next guy.
Yeah, exactly. And quite honestly, your hand position, your elbow, your shoulder, however, I mean, there's, you got the rule book, right, of how things should be done. But sometimes you got to take those rules and bend them and mold them to your shooting style. So my mechanics may not be exactly what your mechanics are, because just may not be comfortable for you, and yours may not be comfortable for me.
Very well said. Well, Bob, we're getting low on time. I wanted to ask you if there was anything else that you wanted to share with the listeners tonight.
Yeah, I think. And this was a gentleman had shared this with me way back when I first started, and it really helped me a lot, and still does. He told me, you don't aim. Obviously, I shoot instinctively, so I don't gap shoot. So so you pick a spot on your target and try to make it the smallest spot as possible. And what I try to do is I try to visualize the button, like the button on a button-down shirt you'd have use something of that size. I try to visualize that on what I'm trying to where I'm trying to place my arrow, and basically I have my eyes bore a hole through it, and that's where you totally concentrate on it, and let the rest of my mechanics take over. And I found out more often than not that I'm either hitting that button or coming doggone close to it. And if you miss it, it's not missing by much. And so that that has helped me. And I would think that maybe would help a lot of folks, because this whole traditional archery thing, in my opinion, is mental. Mostly mental. I'd say it's 95-96% mental. You know, if you have a good, clear conscience, and you're just, you know, got the right attitude, and you're able to concentrate, you should be able to do well on each shot. You know, but each shot, you know, some shots are going to be better than others. But I think, you know, you pick that little spot, you know, you have the right attitude, you pick the little spot, and you just keep concentrating on that. And I think that's, you know, that's one of the tips that was given to me a long time ago, and I pass along to other new shooters. And I think that'll work for you. And I'm going to give another, you know, something else that I think you guys should do. And I said this before, and I'm going to reiterate it. Got to go to the shoots. Seek out the traditional shooters at the shoots. They will let you guys shoot with them. Trust me on this. And just shoot with them and find out if you can, you know, and ask, hey, where are you guys going to shoot next week? Do you mind if I come? Whatever. And, you know, you're going to feel like you're tagging along, but I'm telling you, your learning curve is going to be shortened by shooting with people who are experienced, you know what they're doing, and have the right attitude and make it a fun atmosphere for you. So, you know, I would really, I think that more than anything is important. You got to be around people who share that same love of it for you, and you're going to rub off on you as well as a lot of their tips and techniques as well.
Yeah, like I said, I think that might be the you know, the very best tip of the night, Bob. I think it's important that you know, and that's, you know, and that's myself included. You know, we just need to get out there and, like you said, you know, go to these shoots and, you know, talk to guys that, you know, share the passion, and you just never know what you might learn from the next guy.
Yeah, you can learn something from everyone, and you know something, Chad. Those guys will learn something from you, believe it or not. You know, you think you don't really know something, you've got something to share with them, because everybody does. Everybody's got an insight on something that's different than everyone else. And, you know, you can learn from the novice, you can learn from the expert, and everybody in between. So, you know, so that's been my experience anyway.
Very true story. Well, Bob, I appreciate you taking the time to be on the show this evening. I had a great time talking to you, and I'm sure that the listeners enjoyed the show. And where can, if guys want to shoot with you, if they're from the Pennsylvania area, where can they go to maybe meet up with you for a 3D shoot sometime?
Well, okay. As I said, my home club is Wapiti Archers in Fort Washington, Pennsylvania. It's right off of Route 309, right outside of Philadelphia. It's in Upper Dublin Township. They also have 3Ds throughout the winter at Clover Archery, which is just outside of Quakertown off of Route 309, but that's up in Bucks County. And also, Wednesday nights, there's a traditional early indoor 3D shoot at Cloverleaf Archers. We started last week. It's $10. We had a great time. Last week there were 34 shooters. Imagine that. It's an indoor traditional 3D league, and we pulled in 34 traditional archers from the area, and people came as far away as New Jersey.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah, I know. And there were times last year where we had up to 40 people shooting. So it's pretty cool. So, you know, we do that every Wednesday night. Tonight will be the second week. So, not tonight, but tomorrow will be the second week. And then after that, there will be 10 more weeks of indoor shooting. And again, it's traditional, 3D only. We do keep score there, but that's just for bragging rights, you know, and you know, to bust on people, basically. But that's the only time that we ever keep score. It's just to kind of bust on each other. But it's a really cool shoot, and it's a lot of fun, and you know, and a lot of good people there too. So that starts at 7 o'clock. So, you know, those those two clubs is where I do most of my shooting. Because right now in the winter, a lot of clubs shut down. I think, you know, the Langhorne Club will open up in March, and you'll be able to see me there on the second Sundays of the month. But I appreciate you asking and let me give you a plug for those clubs, because they're fantastic clubs.
Oh, absolutely. That's what it's all about. Well, Bob, you'll have to keep me up to date with how your season's going.
Yeah, will do. I will. And yeah, from time to time, let's check back with each other, and I'll be happy to do that. And quite honestly, since everybody is on the traditional bow hunters, hey, if you're going to be in the Philadelphia area, send me a message through Facebook, because if at all possible, maybe we could get together and do a shoot, shoot a little bit. And that's an invitation open to everybody that's on the, traditional bow hunter group here on Facebook. So, be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. All right, Bob. Well, hey, it was a pleasure, and we'll have to get you back on the show again sometime soon.
Great. Thanks, Chad. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll take care. All right, guys, well, there you have it. Look back at my interview I recently did with Bob MacArthur. Bob shared some great tips there with us. I hope you found that interview informative and can take a few things from that. And as always, I want to thank you for tuning into this week's show. I will see you next Saturday right here on another episode of the Tradcast.